Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever known what it's like to be too routine with anything? Of course you have. You live life every single day. You do the same things over and over and over again. And it's real easy to get into that rhythm. But sometimes being a little bit too much in rhythm causes you to feel like, this is so boring. Or I feel like I'm doing this the same way every single time. Trust me, in the world of podcasting, you can very well run into that very rut. So, we are here tonight to show you how to get out of that rut and make what you do more exciting, more unforgettable. And we have another episode with Marion.
And with Joe.
And I am a podcast pro.
Indeed, you are. Indeed,
Yes.
you are a pro. You're professional. You're professional. Yes. But you're doing things on purpose. You're being resilient. So when those obstacles arise, you see them as opportunities to turn them into great things. Listen, you're also, outstanding. You're standing out as your unique self. It's nothing like loving yourself and going on ahead and sharing it with the world.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So,
My goodness.
we got a good one tonight. Got a
Yeah,
really good
we
one
do.
tonight.
That mundane is not going to last any longer after this one.
Not at all, not at all. But I will say this: I will give a quick example as we tease up tonight's topic. So, me being in journalism, print journalism, that's probably the best example I can give. It was very easy because at that time I was covering the Washington Wizards, and this was during the time when Michael Jordan was playing for the Wizards. And you would think like, oh, Jordan's playing for the Wizards, oh, it should be always exciting. They weren't that good of a team. neither year that he was there did they go to the playoffs. So trust and
Hold on.
believe.
Hold on. I don't even watch sports. Why do I know that though? Go ahead. I interrupted.
Because everybody knew that they weren't that good, even with Jordan on the team. You don't have to watch sports to know that. But it was very easy for me because I felt like I was writing the same article after a while. And I felt like I was asking the same questions after a while because it's like, how many times do you ask a coach or ask a player, how do you feel after a loss?
Mhm.
And so when I got into the podcasting world, I wanted to do things differently. I wanted to shake things up. So I felt like I wasn't always asking the same question. I didn't feel like things were mundane when I would talk to people, whatever the platform, no matter who the guest. And so I think this is a perfect way to introduce our topic for the night, unless you have an example that you want to give before I get
Listen,
into it.
we ain't gonna beat Michael Jordan. We not gonna beat him.
Yeah, and there's only so many ways you can ask him how he feels after a loss. Especially when he was used to winning. But
Oh yes.
that is a very and you even think about who was a part of that, and it can become mundane even in that. And so tonight, our topic is so fresh and so clean. So fresh and so clean. How to make every episode an unforgettable experience.
Hmm.
Yes, it can be exciting. Yes, it can be new, but unforgettable. That's the key because you want it to be unforgettable, not only for you as a host, but also if you are a guest going on somebody's show, you want that experience to be unforgettable. So the first thing that I would say that needs to be done is do your research. People, do the research. There's nothing. In fact, I'm gonna give a real world example. I'm not even going to give a podcast example. I'm gonna give a real world example. So, Marion and I both work at the same place. You know what I'm saying? We're employed by the same people. God bless. You know, and amen. And one of the things that was very key to me and something I learned along the way when I was going to work at this place was doing my research because I wanted to make sure that I knew what the mission and the vision of this place was. And I knew some things about this particular place and the particular divisions that I was potentially going to go for, because I knew which divisions I could have potentially gone to in this particular workplace. And so I wanted to do as much of my research as possible so that not only did it feel like they were interviewing me, but I was somewhat interviewing them as well. Like I was vetting them, like letting them know, like, hey, I'm not just here for a job. Like I'm invested in this. That's the key thing about doing your research as a podcaster or as a guest going on a podcast. If you are a host, the key thing is like you want to make sure that you are tapping into every possible resource that you can in order to make sure that that particular guest that's coming on your show, they feel like you are invested in them. You're not invested in the fact that it's just any random guest coming on the show. You are invested in them coming on your show. So you do things like you go to their social media. You can go to their website if they have a website. You can even go back and watch old episodes of other interviews and study those interviews and see, okay, they asked this question, but I know this information about them and they didn't ask about this. Like, do your part to make sure that you are pulling out as much information about that person as possible. And it doesn't even have to be all the way everything that's necessarily business. It could be some of the personal things that they're really interested in and that they would want to talk about and that they've been dying to talk about, because that's the key thing. You got to want to talk about what that person, nobody else would ask that person, nobody else has asked that person. Now, on the flip side, if you're a guest going on that show, you're not going to approach going on one show the same way as you're going to go on another show. You could go on one show where it's wild and crazy and, it's a whole lot of, language, saucy language that goes on that show. And you could go on another show, nice and calm, nice and respectful, family oriented program. You got to be able to adjust how you move depending on the type of person that you're going with. They might be a little bit more serious. They might be a little bit more laid back. They might be a little wild and crazy. No matter what it is, that's part of your job to make sure that before you go on that platform or before you have somebody on your platform, you are doing your research. So, what would you say is the next thing after that? After you do your research?
After you do your research should yield unique things about your guests or about your subject matter. Unique things that are not being discussed. Just as Joe was saying, you do your research and you listen to those interviews and you ask the questions that weren't asked. You bring up the topics that were not touched on, that have the great potential of yielding an amazing interaction that will help people understand. Listen, an interview helps, is not only there for people to learn in business, but it's there to learn in life. It's there to learn in life. To learn from someone else's life is a masterclass.
Yes. That's
why that uniqueness is so important. That's why each of us were fearfully and wonderfully made. We are each different. No two people have the same fingerprints. Now, if there are unique cases, those are things that I do not know about. But so let me say it this way. Majority. 99.9% of people. I'll leave that margin for the fluke, which I don't think is there. I don't think I've ever heard that, but do not have the same fingerprints. There are people that actually don't have fingerprints, so therefore they would be in that 0.1% together. They would be in that pool. But we don't all have the same fingerprint. So we don't all bring to the table the exact same experience. We bring like experience, but not the exact same experience. If you have a show that's about finance, each week you can bring the same type of guests, they're all talking about, I'm a, if the subject is finance, is how to get your finances together, different ways of growing your finances, different ways of purging things out of your finances so you can stabilize your finances and really build a great plan to grow that, investments, things like that. But there are so many different nuances to
Mhm.
finances that different people can bring to the table. That's why that research is so important. Knowing the person, and then that uniqueness. If you're the host, wouldn't it be amazing if, with no fear, you actually took that opportunity with that authority sitting before you? I'm sticking with the title of, or the genre of finances. I'm sticking with that in the arena of finances. You have across from you, or in front of your screen, in front of you. So it's still across from you because you're sitting facing the screen. You have across from you wisdom, a wealth of wisdom that could help you. What if you opened up and were vulnerable with a unique situation that happened to you and allowed them to have your community watch that person walk you through how to make that better?
Mhm.
That's unique. Bring your unique situation to the table and let them help you walk through that.
Yes. Yes.
That is, as a host, that's the uniqueness you bring to help your guests display the uniqueness that they have, the
Absolutely.
great wisdom that they have, the benefit that they bring to your community and the world as a whole.
Hmm.
So you definitely want to, that uniqueness is extremely important. That brings out your personal interest in what's being discussed, because
Hmm.
as we always say, don't just stay with the things you're familiar with. That will get mundane.
Yes. Yes.
Find the unique aspect of the subject that comes into what your overarching niche is for
Hmm.
your platform. So
Yes.
that would be what I would say would be point two. That would be key two. It definitely needs to be unique.
Yes. Wholeheartedly agree. And you said a lot in there, a lot in there that I absolutely love. Like the just really keying in on certain things that are just going to take it from, oh, I'm talking about the same thing with the same type of person, to, okay, this is new. Even though this is similar subject matter, this is new. And in that newness, I feel like that's where you can find the spontaneity, because
Mm.
you've done your research. You know this person pretty doggone well. I mean, you don't know them as well as they know themselves, but still, you know them well enough that if they come on your platform, you feel comfortable enough to ask certain questions. Um, and now you know certain unique things about them that they probably don't even know that you're going to ask them about or you're going to point out. And therein lies the spontaneity. And spontaneity is so important when it comes to having a podcast, because not only does it keep the person that's coming on your platform engaged, it keeps the community engaged. Because if they feel like your content is a little too similar, or you're asking the same questions over and over and over again, and you're not really having any variation, or you're not really going with the flow of the conversation, because that's really where the beauty of spontaneity comes in. Because even if, and I'll give you an example, even if I start off typically with somebody's origin story, I can always start it off in a different way. So if somebody comes from, I don't know, Seattle, Washington, and I've never met somebody from Seattle, Washington, and that's a part of their origin story, versus say somebody that comes from New York, they both rap. Like, I want to find out, like, okay, what was the music scene like in Seattle? Or what was life like in Seattle versus what we may know or what we may see? How did it shape you? It's different ways that you can ask a certain question that's just different from the last way that you asked it, but it's kind of still the same question, but it just produces a different result. So I believe really spontaneity, when it comes down to it, is as a host and as a guest, be open to the curveball questions. And I want to be clear when I say the curveball questions, because a lot of times people say, oh, you throw somebody a curveball, like it's controversial. It doesn't have to be. Just because it's a curveball doesn't mean it's controversial. Now, if that's your platform, hey, that's your business. But but when it comes down to it, when I say a curveball, when we say a curveball, what we mean is something that the person that's coming on your platform has no idea is coming. It wows them. It almost makes them stand back for a second and think about what they're going to say before they say it. That's really what makes it spontaneous, because it's like, that's interesting. Nobody has ever thought to ask me that. I didn't even know I wanted to be asked that question. And I'm engaged. And the community is like, oh, what's he going to say to her? What's she's going to say to it? Like, that's how you really garner that excitement. That's how you garner that unforgettable experience, that they go back and they replay, like, oh, I was on XYZ show and they asked me a question that nobody's ever asked me. And that's the type of stuff that not only sticks with your guests, but it sticks with the community, because it's like it keeps them on the edge of their seat every single week. And one last thing that I will say about spontaneity when it comes to that aspect of making every episode an unforgettable experience, it's a combination, it's one or a combination of a few things. It could either be what you've done in your research that is a little different from what everybody else has researched and asked, because everybody can have the same amount of information, but not everybody's going to ask based on the information that they have, because different people have different agendas for their platforms. You have to figure out what's your agenda for your platform and say, okay, I know this information, but what do I want to pull out that's going to really connect with my community? That's the key. Understanding your community and understanding what questions are really going to galvanize them and keep their interest and keep you interested in the conversation. So it's one, it's the questions that you figure out through research. Two, the questions that you come up with on the fly based on the flow of the conversation. Or three, a combination of both. Somebody could say something in the middle of that conversation like, oh, wow, like that just brought up something I thought about in my research. You don't necessarily have to say it just like that, but in your mind, like, okay, that brings up this point. And I've had experiences like that. In fact, one of my most recent episodes of my platform, Bring Back the Love Conversations, I had a young lady on who I had some questions already lined up based on some things that she said on her podcast. And so she kept throwing me like bait every single time. Like she would say something like, oh my gosh, that's a perfect segue into this question right here. She didn't know what I was going to ask. She didn't know which podcast episodes that I was going to bring up or what particular quotes that I was going to bring up. But having those quotes already ready, but it's kind of like, all right, in the moment, like, okay, this is where I jump in with this. Sometimes you'll have a script and you might think it's going to go in a certain order, but somebody will say something and it forces you to go out of order. A lot of times you have to be open to those moments so that they're not expecting it. And a lot of times you're not expecting it and your community is not expecting it, but it keeps the conversation interesting. It keeps you engaged the entire time. It keeps them engaged. It keeps the community engaged. And that's how you make it an unforgettable experience, not just an experience, not just, oh, I went on such and such podcast. It was cool. Like, no, you want them to say at the end of it, this is either one of the best podcast experiences I've ever had, or this is the best podcast experience I ever had. And that's how you do it. So recapping it, Marion, what would you say like are the things that really just jump out when it comes to all three of these points that we've laid out for people?
The things that really jumped out was when you said vetting them.
Mm, mm,
Just those two words, vetting them. When you have a platform, you want to make sure that your guest still lines up with your values,
yes.
just your basic foundational values.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure when he brought up, you go somewhere and some people's language is a little colorful. If that's not your thing, you want to be prepared to know, let me see what their platform, as a
Mm-hmm.
guest, you want to go, let me see what their platform is about. Don't say yes to everything. You not thirsty. You not
Mm-hmm.
hungry. Did you hear
Mm-hmm.
this man say? We both work at a job at this time.
Mm-hmm.
We both have employment. Therefore, we're not thirsty and we're not hungry to take whatever is given.
That's right.
Be selective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Be selective as a guest on what shows you're going on. Be selective as a host on who you allow to come and share with your community.
Mm-hmm.
Do your due diligence. That research is not a joke. Going to somebody's business social media or niche social media and their personal social media, listen, that's important.
Yeah.
People tell on themselves. People tell on themselves. If you listen and you pay attention and you're looking and you're aware and you're seeking to find, people tell on themselves.
Yes, they
You
do.
will find out, oh my goodness, wow,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to have to decline. Don't
Right.
be thirsty or hungry. That is why you want to be prepared. You want to be thirsty and hungry in a different way. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be it so that you'll just accept anything.
Right.
So that wow of just vetting who the person is.
Yeah.
While you're vetting them, looking for those wow things, also look to make sure, verify, that might not be the podcast for me.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
Or, yo, if I come on your platform, yeah, that cussing, we can't do that.
Right.
Just it's uncomfortable for me and the community that comes with me.
Right.
Because as a guest, you also have a community. You have a
That's right.
following.
That's right. That's right.
As you're appearing from show to show to show, some of those people literally go to @Marion Swingler and start following you. They go to wherever you are and start following you.
Yeah.
So you want to be mindful of
Yeah.
that. You really
Yeah.
do. So just as a guest, you want to be selective as a guest. You want to do your research and make sure that the platform that you're about to appear on is something you don't want to end up on a panel and you're like, wait, what? We talking about what?
Right. Exactly.
Ask the question. Exactly
Right.
what is this? Who's going to be?
Yeah.
Don't just go, oh yeah, girl, I got you. Whatever you, come here.
Right.
What exactly is going to be discussed?
Right.
Who is going to be there?
Exactly.
How long is this?
Mm-hmm.
What day is this?
Mm-hmm.
You check every box for yourself, remembering you are not just a one person entity. Each of us
Right.
are building a community
That's right.
of people that listen to our voice,
That's right. That's right.
that learn from our experience. So you really do have that vetting. When you said vetting them, I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
do I do that? Yes, but I never ever thought of it in that term.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why, like, I leaped inside of me, just leaped, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. That's it. So yeah,
Yes,
that would
indeed.
be what I would say would be the prime key takeaway for
Yeah.
me for tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to circle back to something you said, which is the biggest takeaway for me when it comes to keeping things fresh.
Mm,
And that is the whole thing of don't be comfortable with just what you know. Step outside of your comfort zone. Bring on guests that push your knowledge base just a little bit more. Because if you are constantly bringing on people that are in that little comfortable wheelhouse that you know so well, you're really not going to be engaged. I will give a very short example.
mm,
I remember bringing on this sister when I had my series Bars on the Road. She talked about blockchain and cryptocurrency. I had I had somebody on the show before that talked about crypto, but never anybody who talked about the difference between crypto and blockchain. And so her breaking down that difference really was so informative for not only me, not only my co-host, but everybody that was involved that was watching that particular episode, because it was really a lesson in, okay, we hear these terms all the time. Let's educate ourselves about it. And I found myself being way more engaged in a show about that versus like your typical show about hip hop. And not to say that the hip hop conversations are, not interesting, but if it's something that wasn't in my normal comfort zone, it pushed me a little bit more, made me want to learn a little bit more about it. That's when you said that, I was like, that's one of the biggest keys to making sure that you from episode to episode push yourself just a little bit more.
mm,
So yeah,
mm.
I absolutely love that particular part. And I hope everybody that's watching this tonight, that's one of those keys that really sits with you. Get out of your comfort zone.
There it
That's how you
is.
keep it interesting. That's how you keep it exciting. That's how you make it unforgettable.
Come
And
on here.
that's how you become and you own the fact that I am a podcast pro.
P. P. Listen, you want to be purposeful. We definitely unpacked how you need to be purposeful as a host and as a guest. You want to be purposeful. You want to be resilient. Let's say you get stuck in that situation and you're like, what? You need to be able to rise to the occasion.
Yes.
Why? Because, oh, you're outstanding. And you're going to rise to the occasion as your unique self.
Yes, indeed.
You're not going to allow situations to overwhelm you.
Mhm.
That's why we started with research.
That's right.
You won't let the situation overwhelm you. Your vocabulary will grow. Your thinking will grow. Your understanding will grow. You'll become more savvy and more strategic in the things that you do.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes. So if y'all want more of this, I'm just going to tell you one thing before I even get into how you can follow us. Marion actually teased up one of our next episodes. I'm not going to tell y'all what she said. Y'all just got to come back next time. And the way that you do that is to make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. If you are watching us right now, make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so when we go live, you will be one of the first to know. Please make sure that you follow us on Instagram at I Am a Podcast Pro. Join our community, which is I Am a Podcast Pro with Marion and Joe. Just search us, we'll pop right up. And if you have any questions, you have any comments, or anything that you want to bring to our attention that we can help you with or that will make us better, please make sure to email us at I am a podcast pro at gmail.com. Once again, that is I am a podcast pro at gmail.com. Or you can just drop it in the comments. You can watch this on a replay, drop it in the comments, and we will address. We do answer any questions, any comments, we do respond. So, on behalf of myself, Joe,
Hey, Marion.
we'd like to thank y'all so much for tuning in for another episode of I Am a Podcast Pro with Marion and Joe. And until next time, y'all be blessed, y'all be easy, and remember, own who you are as a podcast pro.
Catch you next time.
Peace.